Welcome to War Bios, where we delve into the intricacies of military history's most pivotal battles. Today, we're heading to the swampy banks of the Mississippi River to explore one of the most decisive and fascinating conflicts in American history, the Battle of New Orleans, fought on January 8, 1815. This clash of arms pitted a coalition of American forces led by the indomitable General Andrew Jackson against a formidable British army fresh from victories in Europe. The outcome would shape the fate of the young American nation and leave an enduring legacy in the annals of warfare. The war had been raging for over 2 years, with mixed results for both sides. The British, having defeated Napoleon in April 1814, could now devote more resources to their campaigns against the United States. In the summer of 1814, a large British fleet sailed into the Chesapeake Bay, and on August 24th, British troops marched into Washington, D.C., setting fire to several buildings, including the White House. This brazen attack galvanized American resolve and led to a surge in enlistments and militia mobilizations across the country. Meanwhile, General Andrew Jackson, fresh from his victories against the Creek Nation in what is now Alabama, was appointed commander of the 7th Military District, which included Louisiana. Jackson's arrival in New Orleans in December 1814 marked a significant turning point in the city's preparations for defense. He found the city woefully unprepared to face an invasion, with inadequate fortifications and a militia that had seen little action. Undeterred, Jackson set about transforming the city into a fortress, leveraging his experience as a lawyer, politician, and military commander to rally the local population and organize a diverse force of regular army troops, militia, pirates, and volunteers from various ethnic backgrounds. As news of the British fleet's approach reached New Orleans, Jackson sprang into action, dispatching scouts to gather intelligence on the enemy's movements and deploying his forces to strategic locations around the city. He knew that time was of the essence. If he could delay the British long enough, reinforcements might arrive from other parts of the country, and the city's defenses could be strengthened. The British, under the command of General Sir Edward Pakenham, a seasoned veteran of the Napoleonic Wars, had assembled a formidable army of over 8,000 troops, supported by a fleet of warships and transport vessels. Their plan was to capture New Orleans, gain control of the Mississippi River, and split the United States in two, dealing a crippling blow to the American economy. As the British forces approached New Orleans, Jackson's scouts reported that they were moving up the Mississippi River, intent on capturing the city from the east. On December 23, 1814, a British advance party of about 1,500 troops, under the command of General John Keane, landed at the plantation of Jacques Villers, approximately 9 miles below New Orleans. Jackson, aware of the enemy's movements, had already begun to deploy his forces to meet the threat. On the night of December 23rd, a contingent of American troops, including the 2nd Louisiana Militia Regiment and a company of pirates led by Jean Lafitte, launched a surprise attack on the British camp at Villers' plantation. The Americans caught the British off guard, inflicting significant casualties and forcing them to retreat in disarray. This initial skirmish, known as the Night Attack, marked the beginning of a series of engagements that would ultimately decide the fate of New Orleans. The following day, December 24th, Jackson ordered his troops to fall back to a defensive line along the Rodriguez Canal, which ran perpendicular to the Mississippi River and roughly 6 miles below New Orleans. This canal, dug by local laborers under Jackson's direction, would serve as a crucial barrier against the British advance. As the Americans fortified their positions behind the canal, they prepared for the impending battle. On Christmas Day, 1814, General Pakenham arrived on the scene, bringing with him additional troops and a renewed sense of purpose. The British commander was determined to crush the American defenses and capture New Orleans, but he faced a daunting task. Jackson's forces had fortified their positions, and the terrain itself seemed to favor the defenders. The ground between the Rodriguez Canal and the Mississippi River was soggy and uneven, making it difficult for the British artillery to maneuver. As the British began to deploy their troops on December 27th, Jackson launched a series of probing attacks against their flanks, aiming to disrupt their formations and create uncertainty among the enemy ranks. On January 1, 1815, Pakenham ordered a reconnaissance in force against the American lines, hoping to identify vulnerabilities in Jackson's defenses. The British advanced under cover of artillery fire. but they were repelled with heavy losses by the American troops behind the Rodriguez Canal. This abortive attack only served to strengthen Jackson's resolve and bolster his confidence in the defensive preparations. As the days passed, both armies continued to exchange fire, with the British attempting to wear down the American defenses through a series of bombardments and skirmishes. However, Jackson's forces held firm, buoyed by their earlier successes and determined to defend their city against all comers. As General Pakenham prepared to launch a massive assault against the American lines, Jackson's troops stood ready, their rifles loaded and their spirits high. The fate of New Orleans, and indeed the entire Mississippi River Valley, hung in the balance, as these two armies clashed in a struggle that would decide the course of history. As one American soldier, a young volunteer from Kentucky, later recalled, "We were all anxious to get at the British, and we knew that we would give them a warm reception." The British, too, were confident in their abilities, with Pakenham exhorting his troops to remember that you are British soldiers and that your honor and reputation depend on your conduct today. As the dawn broke on January 8, 1815, the British army, arrayed in imposing columns, began their advance against the American lines behind the Rodriguez Canal. The air was crisp, and a faint mist hung over the soggy terrain, casting an eerie veil over the battlefield. General Pakenham, resplendent in his full uniform, rode at the head of his troops, exhorting them to valor as they approached the American defenses. The British artillery, which had been relatively ineffective due to the difficult terrain, now unleashed a withering barrage against the American positions. However, Jackson's troops, huddled behind their earthen barricades in the Rodriguez Canal, weathered the storm with remarkable resilience. As the British infantry closed in, the Americans held their fire until the enemy was within point-blank range, then unleashed a devastating volley that shattered the British columns. The fighting was intense and chaotic, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The British, however, were unable to breach the American defenses, and their attacks were repeatedly repelled with bloody losses. As one American soldier later recalled, "The British came on in solid masses, but we mowed them down like wheat before a scythe." By mid-morning, it was clear that the British assault had failed, and Pakenham's army was in full retreat. The Battle of New Orleans was effectively over, with the Americans having secured a crushing victory. The British suffered staggering losses, with estimates ranging from 2,000 to 3,000 casualties, including many high-ranking officers. In contrast, American losses were relatively light, with around 70 killed and 200 wounded. As news of the victory spread, the city of New Orleans erupted in jubilation, with Jackson's troops being hailed as heroes. In the aftermath of the battle, Jackson's reputation soared, cementing his position as a national hero. The Treaty of Ghent, which had been signed on December 24, 1814, officially ending the War of 1812, was not yet known in the United States, and the Battle of New Orleans was seen as a glorious finale to the conflict. As Jackson himself observed, the victory at New Orleans was a triumph of American arms, and it proved that our citizen soldiers could stand against the best troops of Europe. Today, the Battle of New Orleans is remembered as one of the most significant battles in American history, marking a turning point in the nation's development and cementing its status as a major world power. The battle is commemorated at the Chalmette National Historical Park, which preserves the site of the battlefield and offers a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by the soldiers who fought there. As historian John Latimer notes, the Battle of New Orleans was a defining moment in American history, showcasing the nation's military prowess and its determination to defend its sovereignty. The battle marked a significant shift in the balance of power between the United States and Europe, demonstrating that America was a force to be reckoned with on the world stage. It also had a profound impact on the development of the United States, shaping the nation's identity and informing its foreign policy for generations to come. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.